A very good morning, dear students, and welcome to the English class. So, what new are we going to study today? Children, we are going to start the second chapter of a book, James English Reader. And what is this chapter all about? But before I start to narrate the chapter, I would like to ask you a few questions. Now, can you name some animals that can be kept as pets? Yes, we can keep dogs at home. We can keep cats, goats, horses, rabbits, and sheep. You're absolutely right. Now, what happens in this chapter is a little boy of your age owns a sheep. And one day, he goes for a walk with his sheep, and suddenly the sheep runs into the forest. And the sheep doesn't want to come back, doesn't want to stay at home. Now this little boy starts crying and gets really disappointed because he's worried that whether the sheep will come back or not. And then he meets a rabbit who promises him that he is going to get his sheep back. Now when the rabbit goes and tries to bring the sheep back to home, the sheep denies. The sheep says, "I will not go back home." Now, after that, what happens is a suspense. And for that, you'll have to watch the video. So, are you all ready to listen to the story and enjoy it? Alright, so let us start the story. The name of the chapter is The Lost Sheep. A little boy had a sheep. The sheep ran away. The sheep went into the forest. He saw some grass. He wanted to eat the grass. But the little boy wanted to go home. The sheep would not go home. The little boy began to cry. Suddenly, a rabbit came by. "Why are you crying, little boy?" "I am crying because my sheep has run away." "Don't cry, little boy. I can make the sheep go home." The rabbit ran after the sheep, but the sheep would not go home. Then the rabbit also began to cry. Suddenly, a squirrel came by. "Why are you crying, little rabbit?" "I am crying because the little boy is crying. His sheep has run away." "Please do not cry. I can make the sheep go home." Now the squirrel too ran after the sheep, but the sheep would not go home. Then the squirrel also began to cry. Now a fox came by and asked the squirrel and the rabbit, "Why are you all crying?" "We are crying because the little boy's sheep has run away." "Please do not cry. I can make the sheep go home." So the fox too ran after the sheep, but the sheep was so reluctant and would not go home. Then the fox also began to cry. When these three animals were found sitting together, suddenly a bee flew by and asked, "Why are you all crying?" "We are crying because the little boy's sheep has run away." "Please do not cry. I can make the sheep go home." After listening to the bee, the three animals started laughing. The fox laughed and said, "We cannot make the sheep go home. How can a little bee like you make the sheep go home?" The rabbit too laughed. The squirrel laughed. But the bee flew into the forest. Now, as the bee had already promised the fox, the squirrel, and the rabbit, it started flying into the forest and followed the sheep. Bzzz! "Oh my God! God, the bee will sting me. I must run. Bzzz. The sheep, being afraid of the bee, ran home quickly. When the little boy saw the sheep coming back to the home, he laughed and said, "Thank you, little bee, for helping me and bringing my little sheep back to home."